Hello and welcome to SJP Advisor Stories. In this series, we interview SJP partners and advisors to share their real-life experiences. I'm your host, G Petit, and if you have any questions that you would like to ask an SJP partner or advisor, please feel free to comment below or reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. Hello and welcome to this episode of SJP Advisor Stories, where I'm delighted to be joined by Diane Watson. Diane is an Amazon best-selling author, a principal partner of St James's Place, and a financial advisor at Sovereign Wealth. Diane, thank you so much for being on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here this morning.
Well, we're delighted to have you. I know we've got lots to cover, but before we go into the detail of you, your background and the things you've recently achieved, I ask all of our guests one question, and that is, what does financial advice mean to you?
Okay, so I've always felt that as a financial advisor and a trusted advisor, I'm the hub of the wheel. So I'm in the center of everything that the client needs to do with regards to finances. So it might be sorting out their wills, it'd be giving them advice through St James's Place. You know, it's really sort of pulling everything together and being the person that they go to if they have any financial needs. And it may not be something that I can sort personally myself, but I've got a sort of a kit bag of people that I work with who I can introduce to clients, whether it's accountancy or legal or other matters. So I'm the kind of the person that brings all that together. And you know, who is their first point of call, really, if they need some help and advice.
I love that. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And now we're going to delve into who is Diane Watson. So tell us a bit about your history. I know that financial advice, it wasn't your first career. In fact, I think it was your third career. So do you want to tell us a bit more about who you were before you even got into financial advice?
Yes, okay. So I went to university and did an English and theology degree, and I hadn't got any particular vocational calling. So my first job was actually in the press office of British Nuclear Fuels, which was a nuclear energy company, and I spent 4 years there writing stories. Every company back in those days had a newspaper, so I would be out on site doing features on new equipment, interviewing people, and that's pretty much what I did for the first 4 years after uni. And then I got a job with Austin Rover, and I headed up a team of people. So we were at the forefront in the mid-80s of developing computer-based training, so open learning. And as a consequence of having some funding from the Manpower Services Commission, we had to go out and spread the word about how amazing computer-based training could be for corporates. And on my first day there, I think I had 25 people turn up for a presentation that I was expected to do. So, but because it was so new and it was so exciting, I was out a lot doing lots of talks and meeting lots of people. And I got headhunted for a job here in Yorkshire to work for a company that really specialized in computer-based training. And I did a lot of work, and this kind of leads me into financial services. So in 1988, the Financial Services Act, there was a lot of training required by some of the big insurance companies, and I was responsible for working with some of those businesses. So I had sort of first-hand experience of financial services before I became a mum.
Wow. And yeah, that sounds like such an interesting and varied background. So then you became a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Was that kind of sparking off your interest in something new, or what was it that made you think about changing again?
Well, I think because I was away from home so much with my job, I was in London all the time. I was driving around the country. I realized that wasn't necessarily going to be a great job to have with 2 little children. Putting into practice some of the sort of things that are really important to me and to my clients, I did actually manage to save quite a bit of money when I was working so that I could take some time out. And so I was starting to think about what can I do, what's going to work for me and my family. And my ex-husband was a financial advisor, actually with St James's Place. So I kind of had first-hand experience as to what that looked like, and I decided to give it a go. And in 1994, I passed all my exams and became a qualified advisor. But initially, I decided to set up my own IFA business. And I ran that for 5 years before joining St James's Place in 1999.
Wow. So listening to your journey in terms of, computer-based training, there were no academies back then when you retrained yourself to become a financial advisor, and you took the brave step to start your own business independently outside of SJP or any other, I guess, network, etc. So what were the challenges at that time? How did you find your first clients? What other challenges did you find starting your own business?
So yeah, I mean, it was a huge challenge. So I kind of focused on what it was about me that I thought would make a great advisor, and the kind of clients that I wanted to look for. And back then, in 1994, there were very few female financial advisors, and there were very few graduates. And I thought, well, I've got something here. I'm a professional woman, I'm going to try and find women that I can have as clients, because there's some synergy there. We're on the same journey together. And there was a little bit of networking in Leeds at the time. So I went along to that. I mean, I was probably the only self-employed person in the room. Most of them were employed by the big corporates. They were lawyers and accountants. And because I was really passionate about things like people having wills and so on and so forth, and about taking a longer term view to my business, I started working with lawyers on the pretext of sending and referring clients to them, which I did. And they became clients themselves. So, and then they started referring work to me. So I was sort of, even in those early days, really specializing in giving advice to women, obviously divorced women, women who were bereaved, who had chosen possibly a female lawyer to help them. I was an easy kind of referral, really, as a female myself.
Absolutely. And you were just entering a phase of life, young family again. And so regardless of if it's something, a big life decision such as a divorce, it's just kind of general life progressing and women needing good financial advice, I would imagine.
Yes, definitely. So, and because a lot of my clients, well, most of my clients then worked in organizations, they had other colleagues. So I was getting referrals, just by virtue of working with men and women. I mean, I don't just have female clients, but in organizations where there were lots of other people that needed advice. So,
Fantastic.
that's kind of how it grew, really, from there.
So quite early on, referrals were quite a key theme. And I think that's quite the nice thing about the financial advice profession. If you do a good job for one person, more tend to turn up. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I got in with some big organizations in Leeds, big law firms, accountancy firms. ASDA have got a head office in Yorkshire. So I found that once I got to see one person, I was referred to others. And so that's how I built my business, really. In those days, it was literally from working with people who then referred me to either their clients if they were lawyers, or to their colleagues, if they were working in a big corporate.
Wow. And you mentioned that there weren't very many female financial advisors. So what has that looked like over the years, and has it changed much can you see much change today?
I mean, I can certainly see change. I'd like to see more change. I'd like there to be more of us. It's something I'm really passionate about. And in my time at SJP, I've worked with a number of second careerists who've come into SJP, women who are thinking about having a career change and joining us. And I know that, we have made strides in that direction. I'd like us to make more strides, because I think women, make fabulous financial advisors.
Absolutely. What do you think? Why do you think that is? What are some of the reasons?
I think we're very empathetic. I think we listen. I think generally women are very, and I'm not saying this in a disparaging way to any guys out there, but I think we're nurturing, caring. And when I think about some of the situations that I've been involved in with clients over the years, I feel that being a female has really helped. If someone's going through a traumatic experience, whether it's a divorce or a bereavement, I've sat and held hands with clients who are, passing. I've dealt with some really tricky situations with people, involving children passing away, people with a lot of my female clients have had illnesses. And I just think we just bring that extra thing to the table, really.
Absolutely. And I think often when people are discussing career options and financial advice comes up as one of those options, I think people's minds jump straight to, oh, we'll put an investment plan in place and maybe the tangible things that they can help people with. But actually, it's all of those soft skills that you've just mentioned that people really value, those long-term relationships, empathy, emotional intelligence. Those are the things I think that the clients remember and come back to you for.
I mean, absolutely. And I will go along to meetings when they're meeting lawyers, if they're talking about putting inheritance tax planning in place, people often having very personal conversations when they're writing their wills, especially now as we have so many people who are from blended families, where we have children, stepchildren, half children. I've had some very interesting meetings where clients have been, arguing quite vociferously with their partners about how they're going to structure their affairs. And I think, I think we can bring a lot to those conversations.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So let's rewind then. So you had your own business, you worked independently for about a 5-year period.
Yeah.
And what did your business look like at the point before you decided to join SJP, before we get into the reasons why?
Okay, so the business was successful. When I started my business, I hired a PA and I had an office, and I was determined from the beginning that if I was going to do the job, I was going to do it like a proper job. I wasn't going to, so I was going to, and I was going to put myself under pressure, it, to see clients, because obviously I'd got quite a lot of overheads at that point. So it was going really well. I had actually merged my business with a couple of guys who I worked in the same building as, because I was getting lots and lots of referrals to quite complicated investment strategies for people that were divorced, bereaved, and I felt that I needed some support in that direction, because I was, still very, very, very new to financial advice at that point. And these were quite big settlements, maybe like 2, 3, 4, 5 million pounds. So I was working with these two guys, but also my ex-husband was a partner at St. James's Place, and there were things about St. James's Place that I really liked, although I knew it was quite a big sort of leap forward for me, particularly working with lawyers, because obviously, the polarization rules and so on and so forth, was it going to impact on that? But
Let's just rewind there, because I think some people watching may not know what that means. So what does that mean, and has it changed
Well,
since?
it means that back in those days, lawyers couldn't refer people to anybody other than an independent financial advisor.
Okay, so you'd built up a portfolio of clients through lawyers. So that's a really big decision-making thing for you.
Yeah, it was big.
Yeah.
But you could say to your clients, for example, here is a beauty parade of financial advisors. We'll interview them all and you choose one that's suitable. So I could be involved in that, which I was when I joined St. James's Place. You could legitimately say, Diane is my financial advisor. Would you like to have a chat with her? That was okay. Trusts were okay to refer. So, although it was going to be tougher, I felt confident that I could make it work.
Given the relationships you'd already built. And then what are the rules today on that, if you're working with lawyers?
So, I mean, the rules are still the same, really. It's just that, so people, I mean, I still get referrals from lawyers, but usually they have got other people that they talk to as well. So
Yeah.
it works.
Great.
It's never been a problem for me. And I
Brilliant.
have
Okay.
lots of lawyers that are clients themselves.
So then it makes it easier to refer that this is my financial advisor. Go and have a quick chat with her.
Yeah, so I've just literally spoken to a girl this morning who's just changed firms. She's a lawyer. And straight away she said, I need to get you in. You need to meet the team, and part of that is because I refer quite a lot of clients to lawyers in any event, because wills, powers of attorney are a massive, I think, one of the building blocks of things that people need to put in place. But also, she said, we need to see if we can get some work for you. So, yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, that's great to hear. So that was one of the decision-making factors for you. Your ex-husband was an SJP partner. So how did that feel? Were you still together at this point? How did that feel in terms of coming on board?
Yeah, we were still together, but I was recruited by Mike Blunt, who is no longer with SJP. And we were both very clear that it would be a separate business, because my business was quite different to his, and I wanted to run it in my own way. So I came in as a partner in my own right. And we just had different ways of operating, really. And he left SJP in 2004. And I obviously stayed and carried on.
Wow. Okay. And so what other things were in your mind when you were making that decision? Because you had, I guess, a view of SJP through him. And I
Yeah.
guess there were things that you thought, yes, this is going to benefit me. So what were some of those?
So I think obviously I'd had the benefit of going away with SJP, and I could see that there were lots of successful people. So I thought it is possible to be successful, not just as an IFA, which might sound really crazy. But, IFAs have got a particular dislike of SJP.
I do.
They did then, and they probably still do. So, the fact that I could see that there were people who were making it work. I mean, bear in mind that when I joined, the proposition was very small. We only had 3 fund managers, we only had our own protection, we only had our own pensions. We didn't have the incredible offering to clients that we have now. But I felt that I'd got a good enough relationship with the people I advised for it not to make a difference. And the main thing for me was being part of a larger organization, getting a lot more support. The whole investment piece was really important to me. The investment committee, Stanford Associates, everything to do with that. I just felt that I was going to be more supported, and therefore would be able to spend more time being an advisor and less time worrying about the other stuff.
Brilliant. I think that's SJP's philosophy, isn't it? Let's take away a lot of that day-to-day, very important regulatory work that needs to happen, and give you the time back to spend with your clients, which is the most enjoyable for you, but it's where you have the most impact and it's the most meaningful,
Yes.
which is nice. So tell us a bit more about the support then over the years. So you first joined, and I'm sure you've had a development manager work alongside you throughout your journey. So tell us a bit about what that's looked and felt like across your career so far.
So I've always been very open to growing and listening and, taking on board ideas that other people have. And I can't count how many business development managers I've had, but I've had quite a lot over my career. And, they've been amazing in supporting me, encouraging me to grow the business, really focusing my mind, because obviously you are running a business by yourself. And I liked the accountability. I liked the push, I liked the motivation and encouragement that they gave. I've always found that. I've always been really open to the idea of listening and taking on board other people's ideas. And obviously, we've had over the years lots of peer-to-peer stuff as well. I was based in Leeds, so within the Leeds location, lots of sharing of ideas, lots of training. I'm very open-minded. And
Did
I've
that
got
feel like a big shift for you, that peer-to-peer support from where
totally.
you've been from?
Totally. I mean, it's just like I was on a call with, so there's a girl in my village actually who came out of the academy. She's doing super, super well. She's a partner in Leeds, and she and I talk quite a lot. And, we were talking yesterday about, some stuff, some of the stuff that's been in the newspapers. Having somebody else or a cohort of people to share best practice with, to think, oh, that's a good idea, I might try that myself, is completely different to what I experienced when I was running my own IFA business.
Absolutely. And I think it's sort of internally referred to as the spirit of the partnership, but it's nice to hear people when I speak to partners through this podcast episode and others, that it's real. It is a tangible benefit to anyone that joins, is having access to other people doing the same role, different levels of experience, sharing best practice. And I think that's so invaluable.
Absolutely, totally invaluable. Yeah.
Amazing. And you've been ambitious throughout your career. I believe you were the first woman to be awarded on stage with your success. So tell us a bit about that and your relationship with also the late Mike Wilson.
So I was on the stage in 2007. We were at the Royal Albert Hall. I think it was the 25th anniversary of the business. It was an incredible day for me. I was then working with an amazing head of location, who and this is the point, he just was so motivating and inspirational. And he'd been the reason I'd actually joined SJP, Mark Clifford. And he just kept saying to me when he came to Lee's location, you're going to do it. You're going to be the best version of yourself. You can really achieve it. Let's get you on the stage this year. And he just swept me up with his passion and enthusiasm. Obviously, I had to find some really, lovely business, but I was then doing quite a lot of work with other partners, working with some of their clients. My business is still 57% pensions. I love pension business. And I'm very knowledgeable. I've got my DB license. So I was working with other partners, and some of the partners were saying to me, you are doing things that we're not there yet. So can we work together with you? And we were, doing some great stuff.
I'm just gonna pause there just a second, Diane, just to explain what a DB pension is very, very briefly.
Okay.
So do you want to explain? Yeah.
Okay. So a defined benefit. So final salary pensions. We over the years, where appropriate. I've done some of those and worked with other partners, because very few partners are actually authorized to do that.
So there's a specific qualification and license you have to have in order to write that type of business. So because you did have that, other people were coming to you with their clients that they weren't able to advise on this particular thing. So that meant you were doing a lot of collaborative work across the partnership.
Yes, for sure. And also I was doing work with some partners that felt maybe not confident enough where we're talking about very large investments.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because my background was in kind of, going out and finding clients in my old life, and closing, prospects with very large corporate clients. I was okay with that. So that was that. But at the back of my mind, ever since I joined SJP, I always wanted to be a principal partner. I mean, it sounded like, a group of people that I wanted to be part of that team. And Mike Wilson Mike Wilson used to coach me. So every year I used to have a meeting with him down in London. And, he was very enthusiastic and very supportive of me. This dream of being a principal partner seemed to be very elusive. And I think my business development manager said to me a couple of years before, if you want to make it happen, you've really got to pull your socks up and crack on. And, because every year the figure goes up, right? And she said to me, you're a very visual person, Diane. So visualize what it would look like if you became a principal partner. And I was advising a couple of the SJP non-exec board members at the time, and I was going to Spencer House quite a lot to see them there. And there's this beautiful, for those of you who haven't been to Spencer House, there's a beautiful fire in the entrance hall. And I just used to sit there on the chair waiting for whoever it was to come and get me. And I just used to imagine that Mike Wilson would be there with this bottle of champagne. And that was my sort of vision. And obviously it happened. Mike was on the phone congratulating me. And I told him the story, and he said, well, sadly, I'm too poorly. He was quite ill at the time, to come to Spencer House. But if you come to my flat, my apartment in Chelsea, we'll do the same thing, And so I went in the January. I've got an amazing photo. In fact, the photograph's just here at the side of me, of myself and Mike Wilson with the champagne. And it was just an incredible moment.
And just such a giving thoughtless thing for him to have done at that time when he was feeling poorly. So for those who don't know, Mike Wilson is one of our founders, but he was very, up until he passed away, was very involved with the business. He was mentoring you, and I've heard countless stories of people's personal experiences with him, and I love your story. And what a magic moment for you in lots of ways. One, to have achieved that level of success, which is fantastic, but for him to do that special moment for you, I think is wonderful.
It was incredible.
And so over the years, you've had that, I guess, accountability, that inspiration from people around you at SJP, which has been amazing. And then reasonably recently, you got to a life milestone yourself and you made the decision to sell your business. So do you want to tell us a bit about how that works?
Yeah, so I got to principal partner, so I effectively had reached my life goal with SJP, and I was 60, and I started thinking about what was next for me. And I had 6 members of staff. I was the only advisor, but so there was a lot going on there in any event. And my son-in-law and actually another BDM in Leeds was saying, what's next? And I felt it was time for me to have a bit of a change, really, to get rid of the responsibility of actually running a business, to take some risk off the table, effectively, to bank some money, and to do things a bit differently, which is what I did when I sold the business in 2018 to Sovereign Wealth, and I've been an advisor there with them for the last, it's almost 6 years in August.
Wow. So let's just walk through that step by step. So you were able to sell your business, realize capital,
Yeah.
and still become an advisor and still look after your own clients within that business.
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
amazing, isn't it? Let's just talk about that internal marketplace, or succession planning, you might want to call it, that SJP has, that kind of ecosystem. And obviously it's worked out brilliantly well for you, but do you want to just paint a little picture for others as well?
I mean, it has worked out brilliantly. And I think one of the things is that as far as the clients are concerned, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, the name on the piece of paper says Sovereign Wealth, and it used to say Diane Watson Financial Planning. But to all intents and purposes, we still have the same relationship. I don't look after all of the clients, because one of the reasons for changing direction is I wanted to slow down a little bit. I mean, I was up and down to London so much. It was very, very pressured, and I wanted to take a little bit of time. And for myself, my parents were getting quite old at the time, and it's been amazing for me. And I'm obviously, because I've been here so long, lots of people that I know in the business have done the same thing.
Yeah.
And Sovereign has taken on a number of people like myself. They've got their businesses, and they're all still working in the business. So most people are not doing it necessarily to retire. They're doing it to have a change that is appropriate for them, and it has worked brilliantly for me.
And I love that you want to keep working. You enjoy the job enough to want to do that.
Yeah, I do. And obviously I am picking up new clients as well, so I have kind of built up another practice effectively, albeit much smaller than the one I had before. And I do. I mean, I've looked after some of these people for 30 years. They are such a part of my life. It'll be a very hard day the day I decide to hang my boots up and
Yeah.
go off into the sunset.
But you'll know that they're in good hands because you're already within that practice. So again, I feel like that handing over of the care of your long-standing clients will be that much easier because you've already been in that business and you'll know the person really well who's going to pick that up.
Yes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, so I'm just doing a handover of some more clients at the moment, and it is almost like handing over your children, right? So, I mean, Sovereign are very clear that I know the people that are in the business, so I can choose those people that I think are the most appropriate, for my clients, which is really, really important.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. So what has that extra freedom enabled you to do? I mentioned right up front, you are an Amazon best-selling author. Is that an example of something new that you've been able to work on since selling your business?
Yeah, so over my career, I've had so many experiences of situations where I've felt that women have really said to me, if I'd known that, things would be different. I wouldn't have ended up with the divorce I got, or I wouldn't have ended up in this particular situation. And so it's been a passion of mine. And so I decided that I would start something different, start a business. It's not an advisory business, but it's called She Can Prosper, because that is the passion that I have. And unfortunately, I set it up just as lockdown arrived. So to start with, we were doing online events, and then we took it out and we do events in person now. And I have various people come along and talk, and I talk myself. In the course of that, because I'm passionate about trying to engage people to see that financial planning isn't dull and tedious, I started doing presentations which involved sharing stories, because I'm a great storyteller. And I think that if you can share a story with a client that resonates with them, they are more likely to take action. And so I've got a bucket load of stories that I can share with people, and people will say, oh yeah, that could be me. I need to do something. So out of that came the idea of putting it all into a book, which would take women on a journey through the different ages of their life, and which would have stories that people had shared about things that had happened to them, either good or bad, where, having financial advice or maybe not being as informed as they should had impacted on their financial well-being. And so last year was the year. So I started writing the book 2 years before, but both my parents got dementia, and I was trying to care for them. I don't live near them. I was trying to run the business. I became a grandma twice in the same year. So there was quite a lot going on. So last year I thought, I need to write the book. I wanted to write it actually as a testimony to my mother, because one of the things I realized when I started telling the stories that the information that we're given as girls, particularly, well, all people, but as girls, around money when we're quite little, can impact our belief about money and our confidence around it. And if you're being given messages as a young girl that men sort money out and it's nothing you need to worry about, then you're perhaps less likely to engage. And so I realized that my mum, who was very poor, eldest of 9 children, had done such a good job in keeping us safe financially, and in the messages that she'd given me, about you need to be responsible for your own finances, and don't rely on a man, or all this kind of stuff. And so I really wanted to write the book whilst she was still alive, so that it could be almost like a testimony to her for what she for the confidence she'd given me around being financially aware and
That's
responsible for
so
myself.
lovely. And then the ripple effect that the career path you've chosen, the ripple effect of her influence on you is, I don't even know what number I would put on that, but that's so lovely. And how did you find the actual, I think a lot of people wouldn't know where to start if they were writing a book. How did you, despite all the other personal challenges you had going on at the time, and wonderful news being a new grandparent as well, that's obviously time consuming as well as looking after your parents. So how did you find that process?
So I had to set myself, well, first of all, I did a book writing course,
Wow.
which helped me kind of identify how I was going to structure the book. I was very clear that I didn't want the book to be very technical, because that puts people off. I didn't want to start talking about the tax relief you get on pensions, particularly. I wanted it to be a book that women could pick up and start to read and not be fazed by. And so I think once I decided on the case studies idea, that took up quite a lot of the book, actually. So in
Yeah.
some ways it made it easier. because those stories are there. So we interviewed everybody on Zoom, and then we transcribed them into stories, and obviously, they had to approve. Most of the people that we interviewed are clients of mine. All but two of the people are the real name of the people, so they were happy to share their story. Their desire was that if somebody else reads their story and takes action, whether it's taking out some critical illness cover or making sure they've got a will or making sure they've got powers of attorney, all of those things, they were happy that they'd made a difference. So that was incredible. And then, so we take the reader on a journey. We also wanted to talk about things like mindset, how important that is around money. There's a chapter on financial planning in businesses. And so from start to finish last year, it was six months work.
That's impressive. I'd say that's quite fast. I mean, I know you sort of had the ideas, you'd be working on it softly for 2 years, but that's really impressive.
Yeah, I think it just had to be done that last year.
Yeah.
Because my mum's 92 and she's got dementia. So I wanted to, I took a copy of the book to the care home. And she was she said, "Oh, that's my name," and I said, "Yes, it is your name, because you are the reason why I've written the book,
That's
because
so lovely.
you can see how important financial planning is and how important it is that women engage in that process." And one of the things that struck me during lockdown is that when I was having Zoom calls, that often the women wouldn't say anything. So in a face-to-face situation, you get much more collaboration between husband, wife, or partners, and myself. But during lockdown, often the women were just sort of sitting there on the call, not really saying very much. And my passion is all about inspiring women to understand that they can be masters of their own financial journey, and that if they absolve responsibility to other people, then they can have disastrous consequences. And that's sort of experience I've had over my working career.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like an absolutely fantastic book. I recommend everybody get a copy, and that would be, if you're just a woman in general, have a read, because you might feel like you want to take some financial advice after reading it. But if you want to become an advisor, I think it's a great book for somebody to read, just to hear all the experiences that you've had and how you've helped people over the years. What an inspiring read. So I've got my copy. I'm going to be getting into that very soon. So what other opportunities has writing a book created for you in the short term?
So I've been doing quite a lot of podcasts. There's an increasing number of female thought leaders who are, and they're doing a lot of work together. So there's a lady actually in Yorkshire who came to one of my events who's literally sold everything, and she has a camper van called Dora the Explorer, and she's traveling around everywhere. And she wrote a book called Retirement Rebel. So she's hers is a rallying call. So she interviewed me a couple of weeks back. I met an author who'd written a book when I went to my book launch at Foyles. She's interviewed me. She specializes in encouraging women to be, the best version of themselves. Somebody messaged me on LinkedIn yesterday and said, "I'd really like you to come and do a podcast." So I've been doing quite a lot of podcasts. I've been doing quite a few speaking engagements. And I love it. It is my passion project, really.
Absolutely. And spread that message as far and wide as possible. So all of these events, podcasts, etc., and the book itself is accessible to people. So anybody can have access to those things. And that's what I love about it. And
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier on, you've inspired a couple of people, or more than that, women, to join as a financial advisor based on your own experience. So do you want to maybe share one of those stories with us?
Yeah. So when we went on our first overseas business trip with SJP, we met a couple, and they're still friends. So that was in 1996, I think. That was when my husband was a partner. I obviously hadn't joined at that point. And they've got a lovely daughter, and she was with me last year in London, and she was like, "I'm not sure what I want to do with my life. I'm almost 29. I've tried a few things." And I was with her and I encouraged her to think about maybe joining SJP, because I just thought she got the right personality. She's a really driven person. You know, she's great with people. And she joined Clearwater. She's based in London. I had a couple of conversations with the Clearwater people, and she's fully qualified and she's absolutely loving it. She is really,
Fantastic.
really loving it. And she's doing
Fantastic.
such a great job.
Absolutely. So why do you think it's such a great profession for women? Obviously, we've discussed that it's women make great advisors because they have a high level of, I guess, emotional intelligence, empathy, and all of those soft skills. But why is it good for a woman?
I think for me, as a mother of two children, you know, I never had to miss a sports day. You know, I was always available to do things. I wasn't tied to, I mean, obviously more and more people work from home now, right? But back in those days, if you were in an office, you know, and as an employee, you were expected to do the hard yard. And when the kids were really tiny, I used to go home, pick them up from school, and then go back out in the evenings. You know, they were in bed then. And then as obviously as time went on, I didn't do so much evening work. In fact, I haven't really done any evening work for a very, very long time. Um, but it's just the flexibility that it
Mm,
brings you, you know, of being able to run your own business and be master of your own destiny, which you can't be that person necessarily if you're working for a big organization.
absolutely. So freedom, there's no glass ceiling,
Yeah.
flexibility, and a sense of pride as well of helping people, I think is probably one of the things that you've enjoyed the most by the sound of things.
Yeah, I think knowing that you've made a difference to people's lives, and I truly believe that we do, you know, we do make a difference. You know, when things go wrong, we're at the end of a telephone, aren't we? You know, we can go and see people. And, you know, I've had some very difficult conversations over the years. I've had people ring me up and say, I've just been diagnosed with breast cancer. You know, I've just found out that my friend's husband passed away very tragically um last August, and she rang me and she said, "Can you come tomorrow and work through my numbers? You know, I need to know if I'm going to be okay."
Giving
And I,
people that peace of mind on such
yeah,
it's a very emotive time if you've lost somebody, but finances can be emotional as well, can't they? Because it's that fear of the unknown potentially. So you're giving people that peace of mind so they're then able to deal with the other side of their emotions, which is the loss.
yes, I mean, because as she actually was at, she ran an event last week that I was at, and she said she actually mentioned it, and she said, "Can you imagine if Diane had come around and said you're not going to be fine financially?" You know, I was still dealing with the trauma of what happened, and that's, you know, how we can make such a difference, you know, such a difference.
And what about when you get to see people realize their dreams and the other side of financial advice, not just sort of helping people with their losses and things, but what about the when you say to somebody you're able to retire, for example, how does that feel?
Yeah, so I mean, I always say to people, you know, people, because people sometimes say, "Oh, pensions are just for the future," you know, not going to think about that yet. And I say, "Do you know, I've never had a person retire who's ever said, 'I'm really disappointed I've got a pension scheme.'" So I had an email yesterday from a lovely girl who she's in the book, and she had some, you know, things happened along the way, and she decided she wanted to retire as quickly as she could. She's an accountant. And she emailed me yesterday and she said, you know, great news. I've sold my house. I'm going to move up to Richmond in North Yorkshire. She's doing some like bits of gardening work for people. And she said, I'm off to America for the whole of May. I'm just so excited about my life. And that's somebody that I've worked with. We did cash flow modeling with her for quite a number of years so that we could be really, really clear on the numbers and whether she was going to be able to do what she wanted to do. And she's done it. It's incredible.
That's amazing. And you mentioned before some of your clients you've been working with for 30 plus years. And first, you don't look old enough. We do sort of know your age because we've been talking about it, but you look amazing. But what does it look like in terms of that length of relationship and intergenerational advice? Is that something you see a lot of?
Yeah, so we will be dealing with their children. You know, a lot of the people that I started advising were about my age. So some of them maybe a little bit older. So some of them are, have retired, because in the professional practices, a lot of them have a partnership agreement that says you've got to be out when you're 60. So yeah, I've met the children. I've met grandchildren. It's incredible, actually. I had to go and see a client the other week on a Thursday because he was desperate to show me his little granddaughter. He said, "You need to meet her. She's so lovely."
Oh,
And it's lovely to be so much part of that. With people when you've been on the whole of their journey, the highs and the lows that they've been on. I've had lots of clients marriages end during that period. All sorts of things that have happened. And you're there with them to hold their hand.
absolutely. As you said right up front, you're the trusted advisor. They come to you first. They might need an accountant or a solicitor for something or another, but they've come to you first because you've been there the whole time. And I think that's so valuable. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I guess if somebody's watching this episode thinking to themselves, could I be a financial advisor or not? What would you say to them?
I say absolutely you can. Everybody, we providing you like working with people and you're very open and you're a good listener and you've got empathy, you can. I mean, I guess not everybody has that in spades. My daughter's often said to me, "I couldn't do your job. I couldn't sit and listen like you are listening and engaging." So it obviously isn't for everybody, but we have such a diverse population within SJP of men, women, old, young. There is definitely, and it's about finding what we might call now your tribe. It's about finding the people that you can relate to and work with. And let's be honest, when I started, there were 200,000 advisors in the UK, and now we're at what, 25,000, something like
Yeah,
that.
just over 27,000 registered advisors. Yep.
And never more than any time do I think that people need advice. They can't do it themselves in spite of what they might think. They need people like us to help them and to be on that journey with them.
Absolutely. And be that trusted advisor for
Yeah.
them. Thank you. So yeah, this is a rally call. If you are considering this, get in touch. We can help you make an informed decision. But I hope this interview with Diane has been inspirational, because it certainly has to me. So Diane, how can people find you, your book, etc.?
So, I mean, they can find me through SJP, Diane Watson. They can find me through diane@shecanprosper.com. They can buy the book online at Amazon. It's called She Can Prosper, and it's written by me, Diane Watson. If they want to get in touch, either drop me an email via SJP or She Can Prosper.
Fantastic. Well, I highly encourage everybody to do just that. Definitely get the book as your first port of call, and come back to us if you have any other questions. But Diane, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been delightful.